Hello everybody, I'm here to explain to you the Sharknado movie series. There are now 5 of them. My name's John Loss. I've been studying this all my life. We begin in Los Angeles in Sharknado. Ian Ziering is driving down the LA freeway in his car. All of a sudden, sharks start coming out of the sky. He knows something's wrong, so he heads to his house to get to his ex-wife, played by Tara Reid from the American Pie movies. He gets in the house and he finds more sharks are going in the house from everywhere, roofs and windows. One of the sharks chases him down the stairs. Fortunately, at the bottom of the stairs is a well-placed chainsaw, which it turns out to be the weapon of choice for killing sharks. He fights his way out of the house, into a Jeep, heads towards a helicopter pad. Along the way, picks up this random woman named Nova. She must be the girlfriend of the director because she's in all 5 movies and doesn't really do much. Anyways, they get up in a helicopter. They throw gasoline bombs at the sharks. Nova gets swallowed. This is by a shark, like this. Then Ian dives in after her. They land on the ground. Next thing you hear is chainsaw sounds. Out comes Ian with Nova in his arms. Sharknado 2. They're on their way, he and Tara are on their way to New York City to promote their book, How to Defend Against a Shark Attack. As they land in LaGuardia, they go through a Sharknado. Sharknadoes invade the plane. Tara gets her arm bit off. Important fact to remember, they land. The sharks are wreaking havoc on New York City. Most of the movie is just random fighting of sharks with various weapons. Anyways, Ian ends up on top of the Empire State Building, jumps on a shark, and rides it down till it impales itself on a antenna, lands on the ground, sees another shark, looks inside, and he sees an arm, and it turns out it's Tara's arm. So he pulls it out, takes the ring off of Tara's hand, and then he proposes to Tara, and she accepts. Sharknado 3, Washington, D.C. Ian's on his way there to accept an award. The president is played by Mark Cuban. Donald Trump had been offered the part, but he was already planning to run for president. Very shortly, Mark Cuban is shark food, and as is most of the cabinet and the government, but not Ian. He fights his way out of the White House using his trusty chainsaw. Happens to see the Today Show, and that there's a Sharknado front heading towards Orlando, where his wife Tara, who is now pregnant, is visiting her mother. He shoots down there, finds Tara. They run into David Hasselhoff, who's his long-lost father and ex-astronaut. They go to NASA, get permission to borrow a space shuttle to attack the Sharknado from the sky. They get it up in the air. Hasselhoff, for some reason, goes on a spacewalk. We don't know why. Next time we see him, he's on the moon. He's kind of irrelevant after then. But then they're fighting these sharks from space, and it turns out that Tara gets swallowed by one shark. Ian gets swallowed by another shark. They land on the ground, and you hear chainsaws. And Ian cuts himself out of his shark, goes over to Tara's shark, starts cutting into it. Then you see a baby being handed to him through the shark. Turns out that Tara gave birth to their son inside the shark. Pulls her out. Happy ending, you think? Oh no. A piece of the space shuttle comes down, lands on Tara, making you think she's dead. Sharknado 4. Ian sitting on a porch in Kansas thinking that Tara's dead, but oh no. At that very moment, Gary Busey finds her on the beach in Orlando, takes her back to his laboratory. He's a mad scientist, but he's also her father that she had not seen for a long time. Using spare parts, he rebuilds her, and she's fine. In the meantime, Ian finds his way to Las Vegas, where there's a Sharknado attacking it. Now, the fact that there's no water in Vegas is not something you should worry about. We don't care about those kind of things. This Sharknado heads east, goes over the Grand Canyon, becomes a boulder-nado. Then it heads over an oil well, becomes an oil-nado. Then it heads over Wisconsin, becomes a cow-nado. And then it heads over a nuclear power plant, becomes a nuke-nado. Ian and Tara, somehow they got together. Again, I wasn't paying attention. They end up in Niagara Falls, where Ian decides he's got to reverse the flow of the falls to cool down the nuke-nado, which of course he does. But then both he and Tara are swallowed by one shark, which is then swallowed by a Blue whale. Now, where the blue whale came from, again, not important. So they land on the ground. Chainsaws. It takes a little longer to cut your way out of both a shark and a whale. He gets out. Everything's cool. Then he has a heart attack, lands on the ground. And fortunately, his buddies are there, and they use 2 sharks and turn them into defibrillators and save his life. Now, I and most people thought this was going to be the end of the series. The TV ratings had gone down for each one. Tara Reid's face had deteriorated to the point by the 4th movie you could hardly recognize her. But boy, were we wrong. Sharknado 5 debuted this summer. It's called Sharknado 5, A Global Swarming, Make America Bait Again. It opens up in England in a cave next to Stonehenge. Now, there's no caves next to Stonehenge, but again, don't bother yourself with that. Sharknado knocks down all the monuments in Stonehenge. Ian and Tara head to London to see what they can do, along with their son Gil, who's like 7 years old. Well, Gil gets sucked up into a Sharknado. Ian and Tara go to Buckingham Palace and run into Chris Kattan, who is the Prime Minister, for about a minute. Then he's shark food. Then Ian finds himself riding a shark down a stairwell at the bottom. He stops, opens up the shark's mouth, pulls out a crown, and hands it to the queen, who happens to be standing there. The queen is played by this famous old actress called Charo. So then they jump up into the Sharknado to try to get Gil back. They see him, but they can't reach him. The next thing they know, they're in Rome, where the Sharknado straightens the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but he's also frustrated because all the ruins there's really not much left for him to do. So they go to the Vatican, where Ian gets to meet the Pope, played by that fabulous actor Fabio. He kneels before the Pope and says, "Forgive me, Father, for I am Finn." That's his name in the movie. Fabio gives him the holy chainsaw, which Finn gratefully accepts. Back into the Sharknado, they see Gil, can't reach him. Next thing you know, they're in Australia. Same thing's going on. Turns out the Sydney Opera House is really a battle station that's activated by Tony Hawk riding up and down its wings on his skateboard. You don't see him again. Again, Tara gets grievously injured. They take her to the smartest woman in Australia, who is Olivia Newton-John. All she apparently has are some slutty body parts around, because Tara's looking worse and worse and worse. She does tell Tara after she fixes her up, "Now don't get too physical." Wink, wink. Back into the Sharknado. They see Gil, can't reach him. There's kind of a pattern here. And then they head towards Japan over the Pacific Ocean. The Sharknado sucks up some nuclear waste and, of course, becomes a Sharkzilla. They get to Tokyo, where the Sharkzilla fights Godzilla. I can't tell you much about that because that's when I went to the bathroom. But I think Sharkzilla must have won, because the next scene has them in Egypt. Best thing about going to Tokyo is Nova finally gets killed and is out of the movies. Once in Egypt, the Sharknado is knocking down the pyramids and the Sphinx, but Ian and Tara find their way into one of the remaining pyramids, a secret door. They find this ancient machine which somehow seems to control the Sharknadoes until it jams, and then everything goes back to the way it was. Tara goes outside, ties a rope around herself. She's now all bionic. Ties another rope around Ian so he can go back up into the Sharknado to try to get Gil. Forces are too strong. Tara's head gets ripped from her body. Ian comes down, has a tearful farewell scene with Tara the head. Her eyes close. He stuffs her head into a bag. The next scene has them in some apparently Eastern European country. They didn't even bother to tell us where they are. A DeLorean pulls up. Out steps Dolph Lundgren, who turns out is actually Gil. Now, remember, Gil was a little kid. But Dolph had turned a Sharknado into a time machine in order to save himself. He beckons Ian into the DeLorean. The wheels go up and off they go. And then you see the most terrifying thing of all, the words, "to be continued." And that's the Sharknado movies.